So all the information that I've gathered here is from forums and stuff. I was never a heavy enough raider that I was doing stuff right when it was released, so if any of my content is wrong, please let me know in a comment and I will add annotations to correct it. Making our list at number 10 is Shade of Iran in Karazhan. And yes, you're asking me, Merkel, why are you putting such an easy boss on a top 10 difficult list? Well, this boss was only made difficult by players because they couldn't stand still. Like, there's a mechanic in this boss called Ring of Fire, and all it required you to do was do nothing during its duration. That was it. That was your requirements. Do nothing. And yet, people seem to make that very difficult. Now, if LFR had existed during Burning Crusade, I'm pretty sure Shade of Iran would have been the easiest boss, because lots of people in LFR like to stand still and do nothing, so it would have been super simple. But yeah, not a hard boss, but it still made the list because of how hard people made it. On our list at number 9 is the Heroic Spine of Deathwing. This fight itself was very challenging. In fact, it was a lot harder than Deathwing himself. If you could down this fight, you were surely gonna down Deathwing. Now, Heroic Spine was difficult in the fact that prior to its nerf, you required a specific set of classes to really be useful. If you didn't have those classes, you may as well not have tried it because you needed them to down it. And of course, you had to get down his little back thingies, tendons, when they flipped up within two clicks, or else you weren't going to be able to do it. It was just a really challenging boss, and the fact that they required you to have classes made it a stupid fight as well. So it made our list at number 9. Making our list at number 8 is Vash from Burning Crusade. She was not impossible prior to the nerf, as many people believed. It was just mechanics that were unknown to raiders at that time. It was like, what the fuck, are we playing World of Warcraft or are we playing volleyball? The first kill was obtained by a guild which soulstoned their entire raid with alternate warlocks to make it happen. While it was essentially cheesing it because every single character had a soulstone on them, it was not breaking any rules, so therefore they maintained the status as world first. The first guild to do it through natural means, though, was Method. Making our list at number 7 is Heroic Ragnaros. This was a hard fight for many of the raiders at the time. It took several hundred attempts before this boss was even down. A lot of the problems with this boss fight was the fact that it was entirely RNG when it was first released. Everything was happening randomly, like the Hammer Smash. Random. You had elemental spawning, and if you had a Hammer Smash happen at the same time, you were going to die. That's pretty much it. RNG. You stepped on this, you got one shot. You stepped on that, you got one shot. You got in the way of this, you got one shot. Everything was a one shot too, which didn't help. So you had lots of RNG on top of the fact that everything was one shotting you. Made it a very, very tough boss. So it made our list at number 7. Making our list at number 6 is the 4 Horsemen from the original 40-man Nax. This boss fight in itself was extremely hard. It required your tanks to be swapping in perfect unison so that they wouldn't get so many stacks that they would wipe. And on top of that, you needed 8 tanks. And just to top that requirement, each of those 8 tanks had to have at least 4 pieces of the Dreadnought gear set so that they would get the set bonus, making their ability to taunt properly work in unison. So, this boss fight was very hard, but any one of those guys that got their hands on the Corrupted Ashbringer, it was probably worth it, because that's an awesome weapon. Making our list at number 5 is Yogg Saron with 0 lights, which 0 lights essentially means Alone in the Darkness, the achievement, or having none of the Guardians up to help you. The first guild in the world to down 0 lights did it through using an exploit by keeping one of their healers inside of the brain. This caused all the adds in the final phase to evade because they were trying to reach the healer, which was unreachable. When confronted about their exploitation, they said, "Oh, this boss is impossible to do without using an exploit." However, not long after that, a guild actually managed to do it without any form of cheating. Many people believed it was impossible until it actually happened. Making our list at number 4 is the Heroic Lich King. At this time, Blizzard had implemented a new system which only allowed 50 attempts at heroic bosses per week, coupled with the fact that the Heroic Lich King was already an immensely powerful boss. He was capable of almost 3-shotting a tank wearing best-in-slot gear. On top of that, he had many one-shot abilities that would kill players instantly. Then in Phase 2, you of course had the Little Valkyries, which would spawn and throw random players off. The only way to stop these guys was to stun, slow, and kill them. However, Lich King was down prior to his nerf. His nerf, in fact, was the 5% buff that kept going up. But they did it in a way that was exploiting the game. One little guy had found out that if you throw Saronite bombs at the edge of the platform, it actually respawned the platform. This meant that you didn't have to worry about the Valkyries because they dropped them right in the same general area, so all they did was simply drop them right back onto the ground. When confronted, they said, "Oh, we didn't know it was a cheat, we simply thought it was part of the mechanics." Yeah, okay. Bullshit! Okay, but yeah, anyways, afterwards, Blizzard had implemented the 5% buff to the HP and everything, and they still were the first people to down him. Making our list at number 3 is Muru, who was the second to last boss inside of the Sunwell. He was a very mechanic-based fight, and the majority of the first phase was slaughtering adds, which had lots of HP, did lots of damage, and had very short spawn times. This meant by the time you were killing one add, you would go over and have to kill another add. And while doing all of this, you still had to manage at some point to get damage on the boss, because if not, he was never going to push phases. And if you phase transition with any adds at all up, you were basically going to wipe, because there was no way you could handle the adds with the phase transition because of his massive damage. Also, once you got into the phase transition, a lot of guilds wiped at very, very low percentage of this boss, because he had a stacking damage debuff that if you didn't kill him fast enough, it was just going to start one-shotting raid members. So this guild caused lots of havoc, and prior to his nerf, many guilds didn't see the downing of him several months before it nerfed. Making our list at number 2 is Cthulhu. And if you ask many vanilla WoW raiders, they would probably tell you Cthulhu has always been the hardest boss in terms of damage to gear ratio. This is the fact that at first when he was released, he was apparently mathematically impossible to do. He had bugs in him that made him spawn tentacles in all the wrong places, and his damage requirements to kill tentacles in the Phase 2 were very, very steep, and the fact that tentacles could spawn so far away made it much harder. You'd have to run over there and get him. While he was never down prior to his nerf, he was killed immediately following the nerf by a UE guild. This made many of the US servers mad because the nerf happened on the day that US raids reset, so the UE raids don't reset till Wednesday, meaning they still had a lockout at Cthulhu when the nerf happened. So they went in and they did Cthulhu almost the same day. It made a lot of US people upset, but he did get down. And finally, at number 1, the hardest boss in the game. It follows you across several raids, and it one-shots you every single time. There's no defense against the elevator boss. Yes, the elevator boss is indeed the hardest boss in the game because it still seems to get players, no matter how experienced they are or how much they know how to raid. The elevator boss will at some point kill you. Anyways, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate you all, and I'll talk to you again soon. Remember everyone, if you want to support Murgle WoW, please just like, share, and subscribe to my videos, and I will talk to you again soon.